So today is the official launch of the first micro, small and medium enterprises policy index in Kenya and our members' dinner. And today's launch is more special because it's been a busy one for us in this policy space. It's been a busy year for many people this year because most of the time it seems like they've been spent chasing money to get paid. It's really unfortunate, but I think if there's a silver lining in all of it, it is the 4, 5, 6 of you that I've spoken to since I came in this evening, you're all saying next year will be better. And I think that's a wonderful thing about Kenyans. Yes, it's really bad, but next year is going to get better. And indeed, the Business Daily had on their front page a few days ago that 77% of small businesses were going to hire more people next year. 77% of their businesses were going to invest in the economy next year. That really optimistic statement is very profound, and I think that is the guiding light for us, that even though people may say the economy is terrible, people still sense that the fundamentals are sound. And in early 2020, the governor of the central bank has committed that he will come and speak to us about the economy. So if any of you would like to come, by show of hands, to that event, because what we talked about was, people complain, they say the economy is not working, but fuel consumption is up, car registration is up. I see some people have KAX, last letter H already. I just saw A the other day. So he's got a lot of insights to talk about that. But most importantly, the bedrock of our economy are the small businesses. And we're going to hear more about that today. So this index has been developed, and it's a key tool for us to monitor the effectiveness, the supportiveness of our policies, the regulations, the programs that we use to develop the SME sector, and to determine what we should do to make it even better. So it's an indication, this launch today, of the dedication we have as policymakers to ensure that we leverage this dividend, this dividend of the small businesses, the very small businesses, to unlock our economic potential. It'll be a big boost to private sector, and it means much more for us as we expand even across the region if we can have strong suppliers who are MSMEs to our businesses and strong distributors and resellers of the products that we make. And as we look at the expanded regions, the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, the East African Community, we aren't going to be able to really exploit the potential of these new policies if we do not have very active small businesses operating in those environments. So I'd like to recognize in particular some people or some entities that have been very supportive of us in developing this index. In particular, I'd like to thank the Royal Danish Embassy for the support they've accorded to KEPSA through the Business Advocacy Fund. We'll get to hear from the Embassy on their partnership with KEPSA, but it's important for us to note that they have been a key partner in all the work that we've been doing. Just to mention but a few, they are supporting the Partnering for Green Growth and Global Goals, P4G. I, as KEPSA chair, co-chair P4G in Kenya with the PS of Treasury, and the objectives of P4G are really to encourage the growth of a green economy, and Kenya is one of the first members. In the same vein, they're supporting KEPSA to develop a green business environment reforms, GBER, that is to be plugged into our national business agenda to ensure that the economy grows in a sustainable way. Another very important partner who has helped us to scale the global rankings in the ease of doing business is Trademark East Africa, whose support they've provided to KEPSA over the last 5 years. Is Trademark here? They can still get a clap in absentia. Thank you to Trademark. And we believe that with their support, we will yield tremendous dividends in our competitiveness ranking, and I'd like to thank them as well. And in terms of our competitive ranking, I'm not sure if all of you are aware that Kenya is ranked number 32 in the world of 190 countries in terms of our entrepreneurship culture, right? We have a lot of the ingredients. The culture is right. We are one of the top, approximately that number, in terms of our focus on innovation. We're the #1 country in the world in terms of the World Bank's ranking in protecting minority interests in companies. And so it's a real pleasure to be #1 in something, in anything, when it comes to business. Of course, we have Eliud, but we're good at protecting minority investors. So let's just take credit wherever we can. So with that, I'd like to thank the dedicated effort of our staff who have helped in conceptualization and finalization of the index. So at this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, let's stop here, and let me thank you all for coming in this evening once again, and we go on with the program. Thank you, and you'll be hearing from me again, maybe. Thanks.
This is Markets Today. I'm your host, Mbitha Mwema. We are at the sidelines of KEPSA's MSME 2019 launch of their survey. KEPSA has interviewed 1,562 SMEs to find out what is happening and put a lot of documentation and research into the thought process on policy. We are joined by the chairman, Mr. Nesbitt, just to give us an overview of what's happening with regards to the SME sector, as well as his outlook for the economy next year. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Biday. Thank you.
When we talk about SMEs and MSMEs, what are we talking about? What is happening? What has changed?
So what we're talking about are the small companies that are the backbone of this economy, primarily family-owned businesses. They have probably under 20 employees. These are the companies that are in all of the markets. They're in all the trading centers. They're in all the buildings that you see in the large cities and the small towns. And these are the companies that really give you the pulse of what's happening in the economy.
Okay.
What we hear on the ground, as they say,
Yes,
qua ground, is they're not doing well.
Yes.
They're not doing well because of many things. One is access to capital, and capital is lacking because the banks are not lending. When they do get money, it's from companies that charge a large amount, either digitally or maybe the local Shylock.
Okay.
So that becomes very frustrating for them. Some of them have been working for the government. They've also not been paid.
All right, delayed payments.
The delayed payments.
Okay.
So the challenges around that. The other challenges they face are around, let's call it constant harassment by regulators. Unfortunately, the regulators have all empowered their own employees, their soldiers,
Yes.
to go and shut down businesses or harass businesses. So as a small business, you keep getting hit left, right, and center.
Licenses that are always changing.
So many licenses. People don't come and give you a warning, a written warning. They just come and put a padlock, and they demand something small to allow you to keep going. That's very difficult. The other challenge that they face is really simply competition. Because the providers of the services that they're offering or the products they're selling are not very differentiated, it means the next guy and the next guy and the next guy can offer the same, which leads to lower costs.
Okay.
So what we see as KEPSA is a whole list of challenges around their environment.
All right.
And what it takes for them to be successful.
So what does it take for them to be successful actually? What are the opportunities in the midst of all these challenges?
So in the midst of all of this, there still are opportunities. You know, the Business Daily wrote last week that said 77% of small businesses were going to increase their hiring next year.
Okay.
Over 70% were going to invest more in their business. So there is this sense of optimism. I believe if the government does what it says it's going to do, which is to pay its suppliers and pay the VAT that's owed, money will get back into the system.
Okay.
We
So
see a
that-
few.
Sorry, please go on.
And we saw a few weeks ago
Yes.
that the Senate allowed the government to increase its borrowing.
Yes.
Perhaps that will mean the government can borrow more and pay the business people.
You're not concerned about that debt ceiling being removed?
I'm
and
concerned.
going to
I'm
9
concerned.
trillion?
No, I'm very concerned. It's getting very high. It's getting very high. I'm very concerned. But you know, if imagine on a personal level, you're in a family, you're a parent, you have so many people that are dependent on you, you've run out of money, you can't pay for certain things, you have to bite the bullet and you go borrow more. And it's tough. But that which you borrow can now help pay school fees or transport or something.
If there's no leakage, what happens? Because corruption is still a key thing.
Corruption is still a key thing.
Yes.
Corruption is a key thing. And that there's no denying.
Yes.
We see some very high profile cases right now. Let's see what message we hear in the public.
Okay.
Let that one unfold and let's see where this
Alright.
war on corruption is going.
But you are saying we're really caught up between a rock and a hard place. So this is something that the government has to do. Now, when you come to the flip side, GDP growth, business optimism, what are you thinking about when you're looking at the year 2020? You did say earlier that you expect it to be a good year. What's going to make it a good year? What will be different between 2020 and 2019? Because as you said, on the ground, things have been really hard.
Yeah, things on the ground have been really hard. But you know, I believe in a few things.
Okay.
One is I believe in optimism. As a leader, I have to be an optimist. And if I was not an optimist, perhaps I would not be a leader.
Yes.
Because if a leader is just like everybody else, complaining all day, they're not going to lead anyone anywhere.
Okay.
So I'm an optimist. But what do I see? I see the fundamentals of the economy as sound. Inflation is being managed.
Yes, it is.
The interest rates are pretty steady. The exchange rate is steady.
Is that a
In
problem
fact,
with IMF saying it's overvalued, Central Bank of Kenya saying it's undervalued? Is that a concern for you?
No, it's not a concern for me.
Okay.
It's not a concern for me. I think what is a concern, I think we should be a little concerned that the debt is going up,
Yes.
which means we're going to have a lot more foreign payments, which is going to put pressure on the exchange rate.
Okay.
I think if you look at our goods deficit, trading deficit,
Exactly.
it's
Current
$11
account
billion.
Yes, it is.
The services deficit is actually positive to $4 billion. So I think at the heart of all of this is Kenyans are robust, Kenyans are innovative. The Global Competitive Index has ranked Kenya number 32 in the world in terms of a culture of competitiveness.
That's
So
a very
32
good
out of 190.
Wow.
So we're very entrepreneurial, right? So number 32 in entrepreneurship, I mean. Even our culture towards creation is very high. So Kenyans won't starve. And the saying, necessity is the mother of invention,
Exactly.
means people are going to invent things.
Okay.
And I think we've seen it being pretty rough this year. That's going to force people to do things differently. I'm also chairman of the East African Business Council.
Okay.
That means that we address issues in the region. So what we're trying to push at EABC is lower the barriers of trade across the markets,
Okay.
allow us to get resources and people from anywhere, and allow us to sell into larger markets. So we want to encourage our SMEs to look beyond our borders and go after gold elsewhere.
Okay. All right. So when you're looking at the East African community and also looking at Kenya, are there industries that jump out that would probably see more opportunities and lesser risk factors, at least in the next 1 to 2 years? Are there any industries that stand out in terms of where are people putting money? Where should people be looking to invest in?
I think there will be a lot of investment, a lot of opportunity in regional supply chains.
Okay.
Regional supply chains, because in Kenya, the big four. The big four is focused on manufacturing.
Yes, yes.
The big four is focused on food processing. Both of those require inputs, supplier inputs. That means more jobs for our farmers. That means people need to get organized and start supplying properly. The investors who are putting capital into the buildings and the factories are going to look for distributors downstream.
Okay.
And as these investors, the manufactured goods, digitize their supply chains, They're going to bring more coherency and better visibility and raise the skills of the companies that are going to be selling their products, the wholesalers and distributors. So in that whole value chain, I see a lot of opportunity in fast-moving consumer goods. I still see opportunities in agriculture. Those are the two big ones. And if we can promote Kenya first or even East Africa first, let us do import substitution. Let us encourage people to manufacture goods locally that could be imported from overseas.
What about the competitive advantage of other countries over us, the element of the cost of inputs being significantly higher? If you're talking about labor, if you're talking about energy, how do you then bring this lower and enhance your competitiveness in pricing of goods and services?
Well, one of the first things you want to do is go after economies of scale.
Okay.
If the price of your inputs that you're importing are high, the best way to lower them is to buy a lot so your supplier can lower the costs, right? So if we can open up to larger markets, have more efficient supply chains, the importers can negotiate for lower tariffs.
Okay.
If the tax authorities in all of the countries can harmonize the domestic tax regimes, which means that what you pay in taxes in each country is the same, there's no reason to go to another country. If we can have a common tariff around the country, that if you're going to import one thing, sugar,
then it has to just be the same
for everybody, you level the playing field, you can now have a good cost position. If you have a good cost position, you win. I think what the government needs to do is say to manufacturers, if you are a bona fide manufacturer and it's easy to tell, you get 9 cents per kilowatt hour.
Exactly.
Here, 9 cents.
Yes.
Don't give them some funny formula at the end of the year, by the time you do this and that, then we'll give you something. Tell them now, we believe in you, simple. Stop the over-regulation, make those costs lower. Encourage companies to enter into SEZs. Encourage those companies that are not in SEZs to invest. Industrial area in Kenya, in Nairobi, is a complete disgrace. The puddles, the mud, the construction, how difficult that you can get in and out. Please, it's 2019. We should look like Singapore or Philippines.
We really should.
We should, but some of these roads have been going for 5 years and they're not even done. So I think it is not hard. There's nothing difficult. It's just the basics. So I always say there are 3 things we need to do in Kenya. We need to improve our competitiveness, which is what we've talked about. That's cost of labor, goods, power, etc., etc., etc. The second thing is we need to take a positive attitude and be optimistic and invest and go, right? Business Daily reported 1.4 trillion shillings are sitting in the wealthy's bank accounts because they're not sure what to do. Create a positive environment. 1.4 trillion,
get it out there, invest.
Get it in. Borrow against it, you've got 7 trillion. What would that do to the economy? Even if it's 2 trillion, right? So you need to encourage this optimism in the press. Be more optimistic. Don't always talk about qua ground it's down. Be more optimistic and let the government and the private sector live up to their commitments so there can be trust. So the first is competitiveness, the second is trust, and the third is very simple, just do it. Get on and execute. And the problem is people want talk shows, commissions, all of this stuff, and nobody is held accountable for delivery. We need to do it. If we do those things, we're moving.
I completely agree with you. I've been to South Korea and I've seen how they do their stuff. This is a phrase that I got from them. We say pole pole biomwendo, right? This is go slowly by slowly.
Yeah.
In South Korea, it's pali, like quickly.
Go. What are you waiting for?
No more energy on get it done, think fast, move to the next thing. But don't keep talking about and be negative.
Us, we want to wait until, I don't know if it's our education system that you do.
I agree with you. We need a cultural change.
We need a cultural change. Boom.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Nesbitt. You're doing a great job being the chairman, and I hope to see you again. Just in case we forget your son, you see us, we start, call us out and give us that motivation and that, excitement and eternal.
I'll do it.
Thank
you.
So much for your time.
All right.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't take anything else from this conversation, you need to be optimistic. Don't change your attitude. This is your country. You're the only person who's going to be able to invest, create a legacy for yourself, for the next generation, even 4 generations out there. But it has to start with you shutting up and actually doing something and coming back to yourself and saying, where did I fail? Where did I succeed? And how can I move on? Thank you once again for your time. See you next time.